Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today for another in our series of data talks with Prophecy, focusing on how we can drive more value from your Databricks investments. Today's topic is going to be on the principle of speed meeting simplicity. As a saying in the Navy SEALs that slow is fast and fast is slow. This is a saying that enables people to calm things down before they can go and accelerate. We see a lot of people rushing forward with Databricks deployments, huge amounts of fanfare, lots of excitement when it goes live, but they then find out that it's difficult to get value from that investment and to try and get adoption on the platform. So I'm very happy that we're joined by a panel today who are going to discuss those subjects. And you'll have an opportunity to ask questions as we go through today's sessions. So in the Zoom link you've been provided with, there'll be a chance for you to pose your questions as we go through the session. And when we get to the end of today's call, we'll do a live Q&A with our panelists. So what we'll do is we'll go through to introduce the panelists in a second. There will also be, for the more technical ones amongst you, there'll also be a walkthrough from Rohit on the Cloudaeon team, who's been putting together a 8-part series about how to get value from Prophecy and Databricks in a real world scenario. At the end of the call, we'll give you some ideas about how we can help you out going forward. And the only questions today, put them into chat as we go forward. But let's meet our panel. I'll introduce myself first. My name's Dan Harris. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Cloudaeon. For those of you who don't know Cloudaeon, Cloudaeon is a specialist data and AI consulting firm. That in itself is quite a broad catch-all. We're actually really very focused onto the Databricks and the Azure and Microsoft Fabric stack and the ecosystem that surrounds them. We've been in business since 2016, just over 200 consultants, and all we do is data and AI. That is our specialization. We are certainly not a generalist systems integrator. We're very much focused on getting value from a data and analytics environments. Matt, we'll pass across to yourself. Matt, do you want to say a few words about what it is you're doing at Prophecy?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Dan and Rohit, for having me today. It's been great to work with you guys on this important subject about how to get everybody access to data, but do it right. So yeah, I'm Matt Turner. I'm Director of Product Marketing at Prophecy. Prophecy is the AI and analytics automation platform. We focus on data prep, data transformation, and getting all the smart people who need the data access to it with the help of the central data team, setting it up with the right governance. It's a really important part of the data story these days. Made a lot of work especially with Databricks. So we work very, very closely with Databricks to help people address that largest data data. But it's that last mile, all that specialization, where this topic is so important because people need to need to get access to data quickly, but they need to do it with the proper, we begin to talk about guardrails, although hopefully that sounds positive, but with the right way to actually help them go faster in the end. So Dan, you stole my line about go slow to go fast, but we'll get more into the dichotomy coming. And great to be here. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Matt. I think you've been recently in San Francisco with Databricks. Any takeaways from that conference?
So yeah, the Databricks conference last week was phenomenal and very much in this line. The excitement and the crowds, lots of people there, much more on exactly this topic. In fact, Ali opened up the conference saying our goal is to get everybody to the data, to democratize the data and AI, to really get it into the hands of the business where it makes a difference. And I think this is a big step forward. Super big highlight was seeing Jamie Dimon. He's the chairman CEO of JP Chase, Databricks customer and Prophecy customer. And seeing him echo almost exactly the same thing. Says, too important just to have this with a technologist. I want to make all my business people aware of this. So if you have a chance to catch some of that material, I really I recommend it. But we're going to bring a little bit of that excitement here because with Dan and the team, we're talking about bringing you all the value of getting more of your data accessible on Databricks.
Thanks, Matt. We'll dive a lot more into that as we go through this session. But I think getting value from data has got to be the thing that's top of mind for any organization. I think the days now of investing in technology for technology's sake are well behind us. The business expects to see results and expects to see results far faster. The expectations, I think business users are now seeing from their own experience of working with ChatGPT in their home lives, they expect to have that level of performance within their business. And without the right fundamentals in place, that's very difficult to achieve. Rohit, let's across to you. Rohit, what is it you do at Cloudaeon, and what do you want to say to the audience today?
Yeah, hi all. I'm thrilled to be here today, and I come from a tech and analytics background with an experience across data engineering, marketing, and project leadership. Over the years, I worked on 50 plus projects across industries ranging from healthcare to retail, taking on roles from analyst to data engineer. So currently, I'm working in CRM domain, managing marketing data and cloud migrations. I'm also involved in mentoring, recruitment, and creating learning content. Excited to share that with you all today. I'm also a hands-on practitioner of prophecy, and I have had the opportunity to implement it for a few enterprise clients recently.
That's great, Robert. I mean, I think you're probably uh, playing down your performance with property a little bit. You've put together this 8-part training program recently, and I think it's been very in depth and well received. When did you first get involved with property? Well, it wasn't that long ago, was it?
Yeah, it was, I guess, almost 3 to 4 months ago, and we have been trying to know the tool, try to understand how can that be studied through various aspects of data engineering, and how can analysts get involved, and trying to handle the pain points that mostly all the users or the end users face, basically. So, trying to develop a course was the main goal to help people understand what Prophecy exactly is and how does it fit into the picture in the current data engineering ecosystem.
I think that's a wonderful thing to take away from this, that you've only been exposed to property for 3 or 4 months. Now, that speaks to a great technology. If you can pick it up that quickly, get it deployed into enterprise clients, and then build a training course for it, it shows just how easy it is to work with property. Has that been your experience?
Yes, indeed, it has been. And I think the points that we are going to cover today will highlight all those aspects very proficiently.
Great stuff. Thank you, Ro. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for joining us today. Let's move on to the next slide and take a look at some of the top level research that's been going on. There's a quote on the left here from Gartner. Gartner saying that high quality, well governed data is going to be essential for AI success, and they're thinking it's going to be 3 times more likely to succeed with AI if you get those two things correct. Now, we actually did a webinar on this last month with Prophecy, where we looked at two scenarios. One where you had self-service, and the other way you had a completely governed environment. In the case of self-service, without any governance, you found that we'd end up with lots of BI wildfires that were spinning up all over the place, and you end up having chaos ensued. The users get a great experience, but the actual scalability of that across the enterprise, the governance of it becomes a big challenge. On the flip side, if you go down the governance route and you leave it all with the data engineering teams, you end up with a situation where you're creating a roadblock. You're starting to struggle to meet the demands of your business, to create new analytics, to create new reports, new dashboards, and to create things that will support your AI investments. So we are actually advocated that using Prophecy on top of Databricks gives the best of both worlds. We can actually have a self-service and governed environment, no longer one or the other. Matt, those points, do you think those are worth expanding upon?
Absolutely. It's the well, just looking at the top line. Why are we here? Why are we doing this work? And I kind of, mentioned it in my idea, like we have to get the smart people. Well, it's not because they really want it. It's because this is now mission critical for every organization. We just heard this over and over again. Again, I'm going to reflect from last week that adoption of AI, incorporating all of these new ways to think about these processes that have been very difficult is top of mind. And what was really gratifying was seeing people say that second point. And it starts with the data. Again, I'm going to go back to Jamie Dimon on stage. He said the hardest part is the data. The hardest part's not just the data getting it together, but getting the people to rely on it and getting them the access. And so just kind of that give and take between the two ways that people have been approaching this is all outlined with the overall need to get the data out there, but get it out there in a way that's trusted, governed, usable, reliable, because that's this big foundation that's everything is comes on top of. So many people have rushed into the Gen AI age with pilots, initial projects, and seen some success, but it's that next scaling point where if they built just kind of a single pillar, it's fragile. If they've done the work with the data, it's a solid foundation to build many more projects on in the future.
Yeah, I think we would echo that sentiment, Matt. We have a data and AI maturity model we use as a sort of an opening talking point with most of our prospective clients before we start to engage with them. And we ask people to assess where they sit in terms of their data and AI maturity on one of five levels. At the top of that maturity model, we have the AI deployed at scale across the enterprise. Very few businesses are actually at that point. They can tend to be somewhere between level one, which is your table stakes. It's like, are you actually using data warehousing? Are you actually running any analytics within your business? Most people have got that, and I think that's not super exciting, but that's the right foundation you need to put in place. Because without the right foundation, you'll never get to that higher echelon of the maturity model and actually be able to realize AI applications at scale across the business. And it's useful, I think, to look at that Wakefield research and point out the productivity gains that people are seeing, 31 to 50% increase in productivity from the teams who are making Gen AI work for them in their business. Those are big numbers, right? And the bigger the enterprise, the larger that number is actually going to be. These are things that can really start to justify value in the investment of Databricks, in your investment of Prophecy, and then turn that into business value by having users use AI in a way that is meaningful to their business. But there's not all good.
There's a nuance, Dan.
Come
There's a
on.
nuance to that number on the data team seeing the results. We actually asked that question of people whether they were using Gen AI or not, and the people who were not using Gen AI actually had lower expectations. And so this kind of top line opportunity is really coming home, where people who are using it are reporting more than what they previously or other people had expected. And that's a big, big difference in terms of any kind of technology adoption we've seen. So the pull is big, and that's that second one too. The pull is big. We're expanding teams to deal with it. But maybe we're going to go into the last thing. But the reality is we're right back to our fundamentals. And I actually look at that last line about making more hires as being data teams thinking about these fundamentals: data governance, access to data.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think that's where Cloudaeon actually comes in as an integrator. We've almost doubled in size this last 12 months in demand from our clients to have more data and AI skill sets available. Some of our services allow us to help companies to augment their teams because there's an arms race. It's very hard to go and hire data and AI experts if everybody's trying to hire data and AI experts. It's a bit of an arms race, and unless you are, JP Morgan and you're already running a hedge fund, it's tough to compete on some of the salaries. So there's a different way of doing this, and working with something like Cloudaeon gives clients a chance to actually go and have the right skills come into their business to augment it on a short-term basis or even a long-term basis. And we've certainly done business with you and Prophecy, Matt, where we've seen that to be paid out to be very good effect. But let's move on to our next slide and take a look at the problem, right? So the question we've got on here is why are data teams slow, right? So this is an area where we're seeing people making a lot of effort to work with data sets to go and create more use cases than they've ever had before, but they're struggling to do it. Certainly in the old world. I know from a number of our client engagements, we typically look at things through a 3C model. Can we give you more capability than you had yesterday to do something different tomorrow? Can we give you more capacity to scale that out across your business to deal with higher demand? And can we do that more cost efficiently by actually reducing your cost to make the project pay for itself? Those things always center on how can we reduce the cost out of running a pipeline. And it's not just a physical cost; it's a time cost as well. But let's look at those problems. Matt, I'll come to you first. This inconsistent logic across pipelines, where we have the same business rules that get implemented differently, it's a common pain for data teams, especially when pipelines are built by both low code and also code first users. Something we see a lot on Databricks where people are coding natively in Spark. How does a self-service platform like Prophecy help enforce consistent transformation logic across the team and at scale?
It has a lot to do with our objective. And you just mentioned working with you in this AI push and how you've seen the demand. We've seen the same demand, but what we're thinking about is solving the problem in a fundamental way so that these data teams that are going to have to ramp up will not only be more efficient, but we'll be able to collaborate and get scale in this very specific and complex area of building pipelines. So the problem that we're seeing that a lot of our customers report is that when it comes down to making that final mile, they're faced with, Dan, you kind of outlined at the beginning, they're faced with these two choices. of defining things very, very specifically and having a data engineering team go and do the work. And it's a very lengthy process that actually is just as error prone as any other thing, because somebody described data engineering as one of the few areas of engineering where the specifications aren't firm and the outcomes are unknown. Every time you begin to mix data together and you begin to support hypotheses, the inevitable thing that happens with data is you discover more nuances in the data. And so this back and forth between the business owners isn't just that the business owners don't necessarily know the spec perfectly, it's that it's a journey of exploration. And so this back and forth leads to this very, very long timelines. Our customers in pharma, one of our big pharma companies, did a process engineering and looked at this and was seeing that they were spending 60, 70 steps going back and forth. So that back and forth introduces error and time, and you begin to get a project that looks very good, but it may start to take shortcuts. And so that's one possibility for inconsistency and errors. To overcome that, there has been, and this is something that has been happening in the last decade, a lot of self-service and no code in the space. But they're off to the side, taking the data out of the central platform, taking them into tools that are very specific for instance, the analysts or the business users. And this allows them to go fast, to get things done, but it's equally prone to error, or maybe perhaps more prone to error, because first of all, they're taking a cut of data and it's their cut. And what if it wasn't the right one? So this idea of unified governance that's merging out of Databricks, by the way, that was the other large theme for the conference, the ability to now encapsulate governance across all the assets so you avoid these problems. Well, this steps right into that. You're taking things out of that area, working on it on your own, and working on your own in your own rules and your understanding. So it's no shocker that with that kind of self-service environment, you get a lot of reports that end up coming together in the boardroom with different answers. And that hypocritical story that well, why do we have two different answers is actually completely true. Now you've seen a lot of those stories for finance. Hey, what was the number last week? What was our number this week? And you break it all down and you realize that there were two independent processes or four independent processes. And a lot of that has to do with the self-service and the sort of ad hoc nature. But I like the stories from manufacturing, where I had a chance to work in an aerospace company, and they reported the same thing. But for them, it was on the shop floor, there were different torque settings for bolts. And they had to stop production and go figure this out. So I think that the business impact of this is huge, and the current environment that's fostering it is one that we're all working to overcome. We're thinking about this in terms of one platform where both those teams can work together. So the big pharma company reducing those steps because they can collaborate to 6 or 7, getting pipeline speeds down to 2 or 3 weeks versus 3 months. And for some of the finance or manufacturing people, bringing those data analysts, bringing those very, very high skill sets into the process of using the governed data is really the way forward out of this.
Man, I think that's a brilliant answer. And I think as you've been talking, it's posed 3 or 4 questions in my mind. If it's been posing questions for you on the call today, please feel free to put your questions into the chat. And when we get to the Q&A after Rohit's done a walkthrough, we'll take those questions back to our panel. A couple of things that I think we'll pick up on a later slide, though, is around time. Right? You mentioned around taking 3 months to build a data pipeline, trying to get it down to a few weeks. That goes back to what we said earlier around can we do this more cost efficiently by employing the right technology? Another point, though, you talked about, and something, if you've been in data for a long time, is this creation of silos. If you start taking data out from the central system, running it in a different application, yes, it's quick to go and do it, but you don't leverage the full power of a centralized data infrastructure. We've been trying as data professionals to stop that happening for many, many years. And with this emergence of AI, it started to happen again. And after spending so many years trying to break down these silos, it'd be a shame to go back and recreate them. Let me flip across to you, Rohit. When you're working with client teams, where do you see them getting stuck the most? Especially when somebody gets the logic, they struggle to implement it, or when you get non-coders, right? We're trying to democratize data here, contributing to pipelines. Do they start becoming inconsistent? How do you typically help teams balance speed with control in these situations?
Okay. So from my experience working with the client teams, one of the biggest sticking points is the gap between understanding the logic and actually implementing it consistently in pipelines. So often People on the team know what needs to be done, the business rules or the transformations, but struggle when it comes to writing the code or configuring the pipelines exactly right. So this issue becomes even more pronounced when non-coders or less technical team members want to contribute. So without the right tools, their attempts can lead to inconsistent pipeline implementations of the same logic. So that causes confusion and errors down the line. And I have also seen teams spend a lot of time fixing duplicated or conflicting logic because there wasn't a clear way to share or enforce standardized components. This slows down and creates some technical debt, I must say. And what really helps is having a platform that lets both coders and non-coders collaborate very smoothly. For example, with reusable components, clear versioning, and easy to understand visual representation of the pipeline logic. That way, teams can move very quickly with staying in control, ensuring that the logic is very consistently applied basically everywhere. And in short, we are bridging the gap between logic and implementation, especially across different skill levels. Then that is critical for scaling data teams without chaos.
Yeah, that's again a good answer, Rohit. I think it's probably not even about just talking about the whole enterprise here. In the large businesses we work with, you can see little different levels of data maturity in different functions within an organization, and trying to democratize that requires to even more to require you to have a shared way of orchestrating your data pipelines to get that collaboration, and that's where the real benefit comes from. Because if you get collaboration between technical teams and subject matter experts in the line of business, you can actually start getting a lot more sense out of your data. And the point you made earlier, Matt, that you start working on a data project, you're not building an application where you know what the end result is going to be. You start to ideate on it and you come up with new hypotheses as you go. That's even more compounded when we start talking about AI, where we don't even know what's possible, and so we start building it. So having a way to build it efficiently and then scale it becomes even more important. Let's take a look at the next slide and dive more
So
into the
sorry,
point
sorry,
around
Dan,
time.
Dan, if I could, I
Sure,
know
go
you
for it.
went right into it. I just wanted to underscore something Rohit said about everybody has different sets. They also have different modes. Some people like to work in visual, some people like to code, some people want to talk to it. And I think we had that little triangle there. That's an important piece of the puzzle. And it's something that we've concentrated on to help with this problem.
Again, a great point and well worth underlining, Matt. I think we have a similar mentality at Cloudaeon, which is meet the customer where they are. Right, we try and stay
Yeah.
away from big transformation projects because they take a long time. The value is not realized for many years. A lot of complication with it, and by the time you get there, the market's moving so fast. What you actually built may not be the gold standard anymore. So we try and find out, where is the customer now? What's the business problem they can solve today? Right, what is something we can add value immediately, not in months or years time. And a tool like Prophecy to allow us to do that can really show that time to value dramatically reduced. But let's go on to the time part, right? Because every time we do a proposal for a client, we're asked to justify, why are we going to make this investment? Look at basic economics. There's always an opportunity cost. Your CFO can only make so many investments, and he's got many business leaders coming to him with or her with different business cases. Right? How do you make a decision about which one to go and fund? It tends to be the one that's going to give you the best return on investment, and often that return on investment is measured in time. But when teams try to scale this, Matt, trying to scale their data platforms, they run into this maintainability issue. They got scattered code, duplicate logic, and no real structure. Why do you think this happens so often, and how are the leading teams starting to turn that?
So it has a lot to do with that initial success. Actually, this has a lot to do with how you started the conversation. So slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It is an ABCs thing. One of the things that I found there was that it was originally, or one of the original sources of it was a procedure for exiting a helicopter. So if you have a few people, you open the door, you get out. If you have a helicopter full of Marines or Navy SEALs, you need to go in a specific way. And eventually, if you timed it, it's going to be much faster than if you just let everybody pell-mell go for the door. I think that's kind of a nice metaphor for what can happen here. So you've got a lot of capable people. They begin to work on these problems. We'll get into it with Amgen, some of the things they encountered with trying to solve this problem. We've seen it over and over again. Our joint customer, Marks and Spencer, is looking at this. Almost every organization, when they start to scale, this is the first realization. got a lot of things that have gone very far individually. And unless you start to coordinate them, unless you start to take that step back that seems slow, you're not going to be able to get to the next level. You're not going to be able to normalize it just magically. You actually have to take a step back and think about these fundamental pieces. What can I collaborate on? How can I get people to share? And then what are the common elements that I can bring forward? Now, to your point, Dan, it's a hard selling point. I've been in the data platform, data space for forever. And the ROI has always been, well, it's essential. I need to go forward. Well, we've gotten a little bit better. And where we've gotten better is that time to value, time to market of the data, because people are finally understanding that clean, trusted data is essential. And so now when you start looking at this and you say, okay, these people have gone really far, but there's all these conflicts later. The accumulated debt for resolving this is slowing us down. It's actually a problem because now when we go back, we have to have the highest paid resources who understand the system, maintaining and working on things that are run rate. How can we get to a situation where we can have all the people that should be developing things and then the people who are great at maintaining things? And how can we get into that? Well, the only way to get into that is to think about platform, to think about fundamental structures like shared components and the right governance. And that thinking, although it's a little bit long, that thinking is now an ROI point because they're able to look at the high cost and the utilization of their most valuable resources. Going back to our original discussion about Gen AI and adoption, the reason data teams are looking to hire more resources is because those resources are scarce. Nobody has enough of that expertise. And if you're sitting on that expertise, even JP Morgan Chase that has been doing this forever, they're talking the same thing because they're sitting on the expertise and they know that if they don't deploy it in the most valuable part of the business, they're going to be left behind. So it's this balance of thinking about the long term and thinking the platform and then really applying it that I think there is an ROI, and you're right about the time and the data value.
Yeah, this is completely right. We see this all the time. You have expensive developers who are going and building new technology, and then they get stuck into this cycle of actually having to maintain it. There's limited value there. We often go into a client engagement and they say, look, we want to reduce our cost of actually owning our data platform. Can you come back with a proposal for a managed service? Which we do. We tend to come in at a fraction of the cost of having an internal team do that. We're not taking people's jobs away. We're freeing up that expensive resource to work on the higher value activities. And then we use tools like Prophecy to build the platforms to then manage things in an efficient way. So we can actually do a lot more by using this tooling than we would otherwise be able to do if we hand coded everything. What's your experience, though, Rohit? When you work with large teams, how often do you see these different versions of the same data floating around? And what sort of issues does that create in day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so while working with large team, it's very common to see multiple versions of the same data or logic floating around everywhere. So this usually because there is no clear way to share and reuse components or transformations across teams. Instead, what happens is each team or even each engineer, for that matter, ends up building their own copy of the similar logic to solve the same problem. This leads to what we call a code chaos, that is scattered pipelines with duplicated logic that is very hard to maintain. And when you have slightly different versions of the same transformations, it becomes difficult to trust the data or fix the bugs because you don't know which version is the right one. And it also slows teams down eventually. If a bug is found, let's say in one version, it has to be fixed everywhere. And if someone wants to improve the transformation, they have to do that multiple times instead of just once. Leading teams are moving away from this chaos by making reusability as their default factor. They use platforms that let them create reusable components and share them easily across teams. So this creates a single source of truth for logic, which improves maintainability. It will speed up development and it will also build trust in the data. So standardizing and reusing the logic isn't just a nice to have thing, but I would say it is essential for scaling data platforms very efficiently and reliably.
Rory, I think you've actually hit the nail on the head. You'd be amazed at how many times we still have a conversation with people who are running very large Excel spreadsheets to run the data and then wondering why they can't bug fix it and wondering why the data is coming out in different formats. Having a platform to make data trusted by the business absolutely essential. Let's look at the next slide and look into governance. And Matt, I'm a little bit cautious of the time here. We're up to almost half an hour, and I know we could talk about this all day long. I do want to allow a bit of time for you to talk about the Amgen case study before we hand across to Rohit for the demo. So let me go to you quickly with a question on governance. Why has governance often felt like an afterthought in data tools, and what needs to change at the product level to make it seamless integration for governance?
Yeah, so by the way, that could be its own webinar, and it's the age-old saw, but we're getting there. The real world impacts that we're talking about, why are my most expensive resources bogged down in it, are finally turning to governance, and not the kind of governance that's about restriction. It's about the kind of governance to let people reduce the tasks they need to do looking for data, reduce the back and forth, reduce the effort, and actually speed things up. So the reality of it being in the back seat, because it has this kind of connotation of, oh, well, be very, very careful. And immediately somebody who wants something has to go through a lot of red tape. And we're starting to turn that around and getting people to look at governance as an enabler and actually a speed factor. But the only reason we're able to do that is with tools like what we do at Prophecy. We've made it part of the process, potentially invisible. And therefore the users don't encounter this roadblock of permissions. They encounter this speedway of things they can use to go fast.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, making it seamless or transparent to the user. They get the self-service experience they want, but the governance happens in the background. I think that's a good testimony to what good governance actually looks like. And obviously, you integrate as well with Unity Catalog on Databricks. That's provided a lot more capability with data lineage and cataloging and governance than we previously had on older versions of Databricks. Rohit, in your experience, what's slowing the teams down from trying to optimize these pipeline performance, especially when it comes to figuring out where and how the code is running?
So basically, I would say it is the lack of clear visibility into where and how their code is actually running. Without this insight, troubleshooting becomes a very guessing game. Teams waste time changing the issues without knowing the root cause. So governance, I mean, often feels like an afterthought because many data tools don't provide us some seamless ways to enforce standards or give clear execution visibility out of the box. This creates blind spots and I would say inefficiencies. So what's different with some AI tools is that it runs, let's say, if it runs on Apache Spark under the hood and leverages Databricks engine. This combination ensures that all the code execution follows consistent enterprise-grade governance practices. It also provides a detailed observability into pipeline runs, showing exactly where each step runs, resource usage, and performance metrics. So because of this, teams can govern what they build very confidently and debug issues without the usual back and forth or the guesswork. And the transparency Prophecy offers helps teams move faster and keep the pipelines reliable at scale. So, like you are
Yeah.
transforming pipeline management from a slow, frustrating process into a smooth, controlled operation.
And who wants a slow, frustrating process? I say it's nobody actually wants that, but a lot of people have to live that reality, which is why we're so happy to be working with Prophecy on these sort of use cases. Let's go across to the next slide, and Matt, I'm going to hand across to you to talk through actually a real world example of this from your work with Amgen.
Absolutely terrific. Yeah, so I had the opportunity to work actually very closely with the Amgen team. This is their finance team. And so really, we're thinking about this from those business users. And this is just an example of how advanced some of this thinking goes, because they picked it up from the central team. They've got Databricks, and their eventual solution was this kind of platform. But that's not where they started. So Dan, you made the comment about Excel, and yes, we're going to talk about Excel. They started off with an Excel process, and that is very, very common. Give me the dump, give me the dump, I'm going to do it. And that is the ultimate example of diverse answers, diverse data sources, and of course, no security or governance. So they did move forward to the world, the self-service world that we're kind of all familiar with, thinking about dashboards, self-service data prep, and in multiple different systems, kind of cobbling them together. And this is where we find a lot of our customers, a lot of people that we've been talking about, that back and forth of, okay, well, the engineers have to build something. I know what I want to get. When I go around it, I'm going to get this data source. They kind of had all of those problems, and really, really we're looking at that, really looking at the time and the effort, and also just thinking about this modern way of doing things. You started off the conversation saying, business users want things easy. And this was not easy. And they were thinking about the skills that they needed to bring on board to maintain the systems, and realizing this cobbled together system wasn't going to work for the users. But more than that, they were looking at the effort people were putting in to go across all these systems. Manual security and governance is something you never want to hear. It isn't really. It can't be. And then that's what they were doing. So you had to backtrace the resulting pipelines, make sure things were right, spending a lot of effort on kind of that debt side of it. So the build side was okay, but not great. But the debt side, getting it right and all that effort. And Rohit, you just hit on that. You hit on the teams that have to spend all the effort and governance and how hard it is with the tools when they're all disparate and all over the place. So this team was able to make the leap to Databricks. You can go to the next slide. And with Prophecy, to reinvent their data transformation, to think about bringing this data transformation forward into an environment where all the skill levels can participate. So their target are actually their business users, supported by the engineers. But what they're really supported by is the governance and platform of Databricks. So people are using the right data, they're using the advanced tools that really meet everybody where their skills are, and they're able to produce back into Databricks enterprise-ready, reliable pipelines that don't cost them a lot to maintain because they now have the observability and the governance. So there's some dramatic results when you do this. 5 times faster pipeline development kind of is that time component. There's an overall cost savings because they were able to retire a suite of legacy tools. Databricks gives them much better processing. And that's an example why you want to not just move for centralization, but you want to get into this new cloud environment to do more. And there's this processing efficiency, those last two there. There's actually a stat that's not on here that I think was really relevant to our conversation, which is they talked about onboarding. How quickly can they bring a new person into this environment? And our kind of fundamental conversation here has been this high cost, high expensive data engineers doing all these tasks. But what if we can get somebody to ramp up into the environment? And they talked about that being 50% faster. So bringing new people into the environment is another sign that the self-service with the governance is the way to go.
Yeah, I think that these metrics are absolutely fantastic, and we've seen very similar results with the clients we've worked on ourselves. We see this driver, like, can we actually save money by doing this? And the answer is yes. But that point around about that on ramp, short that time to value from a new hire, really, really, really important, right? Can people pick up this system fast? And Rohit, you're a prime example of this, right? In 3 months from being completely, you were there before, but you were net new to Prophecy 3 months ago. You're now delivering masterclasses on it. That's a real testament to how quickly people can pick up this tooling. And that's probably a good segue into a live demo. We've done quite a lot of slides here,
Perfect.
quite a lot of talking. Rohit, do you want to take us through actually how Prophecy looks in the real world?
Yeah, definitely. I will quickly share my screen. Okay, so is it visible?
Yes, we can see that, Rohit.
Okay. So in this demo, we'll be focusing on AI-specific features more, but if you still need to see it fully in action, you may check out the previous demos. It has an end-to-end use case starting from ingesting the data, transforming it to Git integration. So before we start, just to highlight, as this webinar can be considered a continuation of the webinar we had before, and maybe the link of that can be posted in the chat as I speak. I will still give a small recap related to the UI of Prophecy before diving any further. So as you can see on the screen, this is how your Prophecy UI would look like at a glance. And there are lots of panes on the left-hand side. The first is the metadata pane, wherein you have all the entities that you can monitor. And here is an option to create the entity, like starting from pipeline, fabrics, and projects. I'll be touching upon that. Your IDE, where you'll be editing all of your projects and the pipelines. The majority of the development work will be happening here. Then you have jobs to manage the scheduling of the pipelines, the observability pane, the space where you can track your lineage of the pipelines, how the data sets fit in the picture, apps, and transpilers. So speaking of metadata, now this is the metadata about your entire Prophecy environment. Whatever that has been developed and shared with you can be seen here. And the challenges that we touched upon earlier in the discussion today can be seen getting resolved as I explain you each and every component. So as you can see on the screen, this is the first thing, that is a project. It is essentially a code stored on Git. All your business logic, pipelines, dataset, jobs is versioned as a code in a Git repository. You can host it on any Git provider, organize it within folders. And the language that you choose at the time of project creation, typically Spark or Python, defines how your logic gets stored in Git. Because as it is a drag and drop component, you must be wondering what all the options that I can choose from. So whether you are using a drag and drop functionality, you still have the option that your underlying code can be stored in one of these three languages that you are seeing on your screen. Okay, so next up, we have pipelines. So this is where you build, like you ingest the data, process it by applying some business logic and usually the governing standards that you want, and you can see which projects belongs to which particular pipeline and so on. So next up is jobs, where you can monitor all the, or I mean, this is something that we use for orchestration purposes to schedule your pipelines. You can also create a workflow by connecting multiple pipelines sequentially or parallelly. Next up, we have the data sets. Now, in Prophecy, these are the entities that hold all the configurations needed to read or write the data. Once defined, they can be reused across multiple pipelines. They are version controlled and are stored as code in Git itself, like just like other project components that we have spoken about. This greatly reduces duplication by data engineers working on the same team and simplifies maintenance across workflows. Next up is Fabrics. So to run the pipelines in Prophecy, we use an execution environment called Fabric. It helps the team manage workflows across dev, staging, and production environments. And the most important thing, computational power required can be natively taken from Fabric that we connect to. So these are the fabrics that we have already connected to in this particular workspace. So the options that we're talking about, the engine that we can use is if we choose Spark as a provider, you can make use of Databricks, EMR, Synapse, Dataproc. And if you choose option as a SQL, then you have an options to collect to Snowflake, BigQuery data, Trino, Redshift. And if it is Airflow, you can see Cloud Composer, MWA, and some open source tools that are easily at your disposal. But in this particular version, we are taking Databricks as our standard execution engine for the purpose of this demo. So Prophecy connects to Databricks using a PAD token or OAuth token that translates the pipeline to Spark code and schedules them as tags for streamlined execution. Now, let's go to our editor. Now, try to touch upon the points that we discussed earlier. I will not go in the exact same order, but we'll try to cover everything we touched upon earlier. So you can navigate through all of your projects in your editor that you are part of and that you have created. In this project, the first thing that you'll see is the pipelines that you have created and the lineage for all the pipelines and the data sets that have been used, the subgraphs, the data sets that are already configured to this particular workspace, whether those are input or output data sets. Now, here we already have some data sets configured. So, but before that, this is the canvas where we'll be doing all the development work. So to do the development work, we use something called as gems in Prophecy, which are the modular and reusable components for their each specific purposes, as you can see. So source and target gems are the ones that you use to read and write the data. And transform gems perform the various operations that we perform in day-to-day as a data engineer or an analyst, like limiting, order by, formatting the columns, doing some grouping, join, split, and there are other options that we can highlight upon later on. So the data sets have already been configured, as I mentioned earlier. The things that you can see here are reusable by other team members working on the same project. Like we need to provide a valid metadata from creating silos. So basically what happens is if you are using data sets in such a way, we can prevent teams from creating silos and the pipeline required to create the silos. We can avoid the redundant work and maintain the governance. So let me pull up this particular data set and it will ask me to interpret as a source or a target. I have done it as a source. Now you can see that there is a small pop-up that is taking place as soon as I entered the uh, data on my canvas. It is giving me the options to connect it with different sources based on the metadata that it has gone through and based on the understanding of the project. So I will choose the products data set here. And this is basically the adventure works cycling products, cycling sales data sets basically. And it has automatically telling you that what other data sets it can join with, and it can tell you appropriate next plan of action if you're working with the data set that is new to you. So let us see what it has done. If we see the join gem here particularly, we can see that it has automatically performed an operation to join on the basis of the product keys in both the tables. So it has automatically identified that with the help of AI. Now coming back, I need to perform some reformatting on the columns and create an enriched sales pipeline, for example. The same operations that we do in our select clause, like adding the columns that we want. So here, what I will do is I'll be using a transform gem from the tab that is in above. That has, I mean, those are, it has basically various gems for various different transformations. So this reformat gem can be considered an equivalent of the select clause, wherein all that operations that you can do in select clause, like creating new columns to adding new columns or renaming them, that all will be performed here. Now, the first thing that it has identified is all the columns that are present in my data set. And what I will want to do is first thing, let's say if I want to see that the product cost column is particularly marked as a string, but I want to change it to integer or float or a double based on the value. So what I'll do is instead of remembering the syntax, what if I'm not very fluent with it, I will ask the AI to change the product cost data type to double. So as soon as I hit enter, it has given me a perfect syntax to basically translate or cast that particular data type. It has also renamed the column, but if you're not happy with that, you can change the formula as well as you can change the column, new column name that it is being renaming to. Now, let's say if you want to do the same for product price, let's see how AI can help you if you type the formula by yourself and you make a mistake. So let's say I'll purposely try to make a mistake here. I will say that I will skip the as a keyword. So it will immediately prompt me that there is an error, and it will give me an option to fix with AI, and it will show me what error exactly am I making, and I will apply the fix by using this data copilot. So now observe now, it's just as I'm trying to type the product profit column, automatically it assesses the metadata and it will evaluate that the price and cost columns are present. So it is a no-brainer that the price minus the cost is the profit. So it has automatically wrote that formula for you. So this is how you can leverage your AI. Now, let's come back. Now, what if you don't want to do this manually by scanning all the columns, the data, scanning all the columns by going through the data, I can ask Copilot to do it for me. So what I'll do here is I have selected the products gem and I have hit the Copilot and it is asking me what I would like to do. So here I will type in that I want to go through all the data. I want it to go through all the data and change the data types for me, because if there are hundreds of columns, then I do not want to work on them manually. So as soon as you hit enter, it will take its time. And it has reattached a new reformat gem. And let's try to see if it works as required. So as you can see, it has done most of the jobs, and it has specifically also tried to convert the numeric data types. But let's say if you're not happy with the product key being a string, you can still go and you will have the flexibility to change your code. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that I know what I need to do. So, but what if I'm not aware about the syntax? Let AI take care of that for me. So this enables me to focus more on the logic and getting things done instead of worrying about how and the specifics of the code. So eventually, this will give me a very good boost in productivity. Now, uh, covering our next scenario in this particular tab, that how can you build a complete pipeline from scratch if you have just the idea about the data. So I have the data with me where I want to do some quick analysis to be performed. Let's try to see the data first. Now I want to see, and let's say if I want to perform, which color cycles was sold the highest in each month. So instead of me doing this, what I will do is I will select this gem and I will ask AI that I want it to give me the total sales for each product colors cycle sold. So let's see if it interprets it correctly. Okay, so it is doing its thinking. Now, if you give it some time, it has automatically added two new transformation steps. So let's have a look at each of them one by one. So initially it did a select clause. It performed a select clause using a reformat gem, and it tried to select three columns that are necessary for this analytic purpose. So it has created a new column to calculate the quantity, order quantity or the exact sale that has taken place, multiplying product price with order quantity. And the column that has been renamed. Of course, you can change it if you're not happy with what AI is providing you. So if you save this and let's try to check the other one. So the total sales column has been created as an aggregate, and we are aggregating upon the product color and order month. So let's try to run this. So it has given me some 42 rows, and I can see that for different colors, I am seeing different cycles the sales of the cycles for each color in that particular month. But this is not ordered according to how I want it to be, and it is quite not quite readable. So let's say if we can go back, and we have this gem already selected. So we will go to Copilot and ask it to order this by descending, maybe by month. Okay, so let's check the syntax again. Try running it. All right. So it has given us some 42 rows again. Now you can see that the cycles that are being sold. So in the month of December, for each particular color, there are different sales happening. But I'm still interested in which color cycle is being sold in that particular month, the highest sales that is contributing it to. So again, I will go to AI and I will specifically tell it this time to give me only the color with the highest sales for that particular month. Okay, so I will trust that it has performed some proper operations. And instead of checking this logic again, of course, it has reduced the number of rows to 12. Now for 12 months, we have the data here. So we are able to do a quick analysis and it gives us an insight that the red color cycle has been the most selling in the first half of the year, and the next half, it was the black color cycles. So, that is for the analyst to figure out what they want to get out of it. So the another way to perform or maybe use AI in your stack is by using a script gem that is available in the custom tile. So what we'll do here is I can connect this to the script gem, and I will try to provide it a code from scratch. And this is where you can write your own code or maybe take the help of AI. So I am trying to write here that giving the highest selling product by each month. Now we have our code with us here, and as you can see, it has given a completely fresh code written in PySpark, and also it has given the comments for us to understand. So if you try to run this, we can see the output. And of course, it has given us 12 rows. And we have only the data for 12 specific months. Now let's try to order this in a descending fashion for a quick analysis. Okay. So we are able to see that it is giving us the product ID of the products that were the highest sold in that particular month, regardless of the color this time. So this is how I was able to perform a quick analysis. And of course, I can go in the script gem and change the logic or fine tune it however I see fit. So the next part is, the last thing I have to cover in this particular section is that uh, how a properly governed pipeline can make your life easier. Like suppose you are someone new to someone's code and don't want to go through each and every line of code. Like what we usually do is we try to read the comments, which makes the code readable and get an idea of what is happening inside it. Similarly, it is a good practice to name all of your gems. Doing so will help visitor also understand that, or even you for that matter, as a developer, that what is happening at each stage of the transformation, so that we can understand the steps undertaken to achieve the final results. So as you can see on the screen, in front of each gem, above the gem, there is a small highlight about the gem, exactly what it is doing. But let's say if you're still confused as to what it is doing, you can select all of the gems together or one by one, and you can ask it to explain. So what now the AI will do is try to fetch the computation that has happened inside of it, and it will try to give you a summary as well as what each and every gem or transformation has taken place and what exactly is happening at a very high level, if you don't want to go into the syntax of the code. And even if you can do that, you can, of course, ask the AI, and also you can ask the AI to explain each and every gem individually as well. So the next is the custom gems and subgraphs. So touching upon the reusability part very shortly, because we are quite short of time. So very briefly, we already discussed that data sets and how they can be reused to avoid your duplication of work. So another good feature is that if you're not satisfied with the out-of-the-box gems that and resources that are being provided to you, you can create your own one using your own custom logic and give another UI version for performing some operations on the data. You can also create your own custom gems with your own logic and UI. Now, not necessarily you have to keep it limited to you. This can be shared as a reusable component across projects so that other members also can use it. So if in order to create that custom gem, you just have to go into gem section and hit on the plus icon. And there are three types of gems that you can create by yourself, like the transformation gem, dataset format gem, and the third gem wherein you can apply any sort of logic that you want it to do. So transformation gem basically to create each and every in-memory calculation that you want it to do. A dataset format gem for the reading and writing of the data, and the other third gem that you're seeing there is for any custom logic that you want your pipeline to do. Next up is subgraph. So this one can also be created and shared across teams. But what it does is makes your life easier so that you don't have to perform the same set of operations again and again in all of your workflows or pipeline. You can create a subgraph having multiple gems performing the some transformations and group them together inside a one entity. So I have created some of the subgraphs here. So if I have to open this and show you a very simple version of it, I have these two gems repeatedly performing the same operations in my pipelines throughout my project. So what I can do is I can have these gems working in sync with each other each and every time, and I can publish this subgraph as a component, and this subgraph can then be used by any member of the team that wants to use it. And if the same data set, the same operations are being performed on a similar data set throughout your projects, which is a necessary step, we can easily make use of that. Now, if you want to quickly make a subgraph, the other option is to you can select the gems in series, and as you select that, it will give an option to make that subgraph. And if you click on this, it will combine it in a gem, so that it will also help you make your pipeline less cluttered, and you can refine your logic a little bit. So that was all about it. Now coming to the code section. So let's have a look.
Rohit, I'm
Yeah.
going to have to cut you short here. There's a saying in show business, right? Always leaving wanting more. I think you're going on down to the code part. We're going to bring together the low code version and the coding version to get the best of both worlds. But we're going to run out of time here. So what we'll do is I'll get our marketing to put a slide up here about how you can interact with Cloudaeon and find out more. You put together that 8-part tutorial series. That's a great place for people to get started. But Matt, what's your experience in the real world, right? How do teams get started with Prophecy?
Yeah, I mean, as you've seen, that Prophecy is all about bringing the multiple data teams together, getting them on the same page. And so data leaders, change agents, you would think on the central team, but at the Databricks Summit, we saw interest from almost everybody working with data. So teams get started by finding a problem that's critical to them and beginning to make the change in their organization, and from getting help from people like you, Dan, at Cloudaeon.
That's a great plug for us, Matt. We're very excited about our partnership with you. We've really been champions of Prophecy since you guys were, you were pre-Series A, I think, when we started working with you. We saw the potential in Prophecy to get value from Databricks right from day one, and it's a pleasure to keep working with you. If you're running Databricks and you want to get more value from it, you want to free yourself from mundane, repetitive tasks, you want to give self-service to your business, and you want to do that in a governed way, please feel free to reach out to us. Get us on cloudaeon.com. Find us on the social chat channels. We'd love to have a conversation with you and share what we've learned working with Prophecy on to bring it to bear in your environment. Thank you very much to you, Matt. Thank you very much to you, Rohit. Again, always a pleasure to work with you. Until the next one, goodbye.